Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the program on FICCI National Geospatial Awards. As many of you would be aware that FICCI has a very active Geospatial Technologies Committee, which is currently chaired by Mr. Agendra Kumar, who is the Managing Director of ESRI India, and co-chaired by Dr. Anirudh Roy, who is from Genesis, who's the CTO of Genesis. Both have kindly joined us today. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So we have been actually working in this space for quite some time now on the policy front, and for last many years we have been doing the job of sort of evangelizing this technology and increasing the usage and demand as far as geospatial technology is concerned. And instituting this award was one of the tools for creating more awareness and increasing and enhancing the usage of this technology across various aspects, including governance, business, and so on and so forth. So, the purpose of this award, as I mentioned, was to recognize the achievement in geospatial technologies, disseminate knowledge on effective method of designing and implementing GI initiatives, encourage innovations, and promote and exchange experience of problem solving, mitigating risk, and planning. So, going forward, we received various entries from both private sector as well as government sector, and our eminent jury, which is chaired by Dr. Shailesh Nayak, uh, they evaluated all these entries on the basis of relevance, objective, methodology, technology, innovation, sustainability, replicability, and benefits intended to the citizens. So, based on this, the results have been declared by the jury, which we will be announcing today. So, while we are on WebEx with limited audience here, this entire thing is being broadcasted on FICCI Byte platform, where a lot of people have logged in, and we are being viewed by a lot of stakeholders across the industry. So, with these opening remarks, I request our chair, Mr. Agendra Kumar, to deliver his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sumit. A very warm welcome to everyone on the meeting here today. Good morning to you, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Mr. Sonmani Bohra, Vishnu Chandra ji, Amit Bhargav ji, and some of the colleagues who are also joining from there, and all other colleagues from the industry, user groups, academia who are on this call. It's a great privilege and honor for me to deliver this short inaugural address of a couple of minutes. As Sumit introduced this particular initiative of FICCI, which is to recognize efforts by some of the user groups, uh, it's a very good initiative, and it brings all the good work which is being done by various users to light, and helps in sharing that with other people so that they can learn from what is being done elsewhere. As we've all seen, the geospatial policy ecosystem has changed quite a lot in last 2 years. First, the new geospatial data guidelines came in February 2021, and at the end of 2022, the new national geospatial policy was announced. So these are two very important and really a great milestones in the geospatial journey for the country, for the nation. And after the new policy came in, the interest from various ministries, departments, users, both in public and private sector, has gone up tremendously. It's easier to get data. There's no ambiguity left in the policy level and the policies, and also data sharing has become a reality. So many government organizations today are able to share data with other government departments as well as some private people who may find that data useful. So it's a great change which has happened, and this is already leading to the increase in usage of geospatial technologies in various sectors of our economy. If we look at the geospatial ecosystem as such, it consists of different players, different categories of players. There are technology companies, both in hardware and software. Then there are a lot of service providers for data collection, data processing, data management, application development. So all those different kind of service providers are there. Then there are companies who provide other kind of content like satellite imagery, There are companies who do surveys using drones and aircraft. So there are a whole lot of companies, LiDAR survey companies. So it's a very large ecosystem of people which employs thousands of people in the country. And the demand of people is ever increasing and it's going up. Sometimes there are delays because sufficient number of people are not available to do the services work or data creation work. So those are some of the challenges which we are together trying to see how to solve them, how to address them, so that there's manpower available for providing services and the whole thing. Now it becomes very important to recognize the efforts by each player group in this geospatial ecosystem. And that's where these kind of awards and other similar activities which happen in the country play a very important role. So FICCI Geospatial Committee invites uh, case studies, or rather the nomination for projects where the use of geospatial technology was exemplary. And out of that, some are picked up for recognition, and the committee headed, the jury headed under the leadership of Dr. Shailesh Nayak has done that, and it's really great to have the results of the out of all the nominations of the organization that stood out in terms of use of geospatial technology and getting the value out of those efforts. Uh, so I think with that, I will hand it over back to Sumit to take the proceedings forward, and uh, and all the best to all the people who are getting this recognition, and also I'd like to thank uh, and thank the others who could not make it for their participation, because it's not that the efforts were not good. Sometimes it happens that there is a limitation in terms of how many we are looking to recognize. So not everybody may not get recognized. But I think in every sector, all the nominations which were received were very good, and a lot of good case studies came forward by way of these nominations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for setting the context. And you rightly mentioned all the entries received, which were of equally good. I think it was a very challenging task for the jury. And in fact, going forward, I would like to request the chair of the jury, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, who has been former Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, and currently Director of NIAS, to share his views and his experience about the entire thing. And special thanks to you, Dr. Nayak. I know you were completely occupied today, and on my request, you have sort of joined us. So thank you so much, sir. And I request you to share your views.
Thank you, Sumit, and thank you very much, Mr. Agendra Kumar and Anirudh, and all my distinguished colleagues. It was really a good task, and first of all, I would like to compliment all those who participated in this contest. Actually, it was, I must say that it was a very tough job. Fortunately, I had extremely two colleagues, Dr. Seema and Dr. Biswas, who had done tremendous job on this assessing. And FICCI has a very detailed template to see each and every aspect for each and every proposal. So I compliment FICCI also to design such a nice template to assess. And it was a difficult task for us, because all the participants or the entries were extremely good. One thing which struck to me is that the all entries have come from the large industries, some startups, central government, state government. So all kinds of people have come together. And it was really good to see that it is not that only state governments were good or industry were good or the central government. All the four categories, the entries were extremely good and very innovative. And we had a lot of discussion to come to the final conclusion. But I would also request FICCI, earlier, once you had released a booklet, a couple of pages or 2-3 pages for each book. I think if you can do that for all the entries and this to wider circulation, it would be very useful and disseminate this subject in many other areas. So, if possible, I would request you to do that. And I would also like to compliment those who were winners of this. It is really good. And many of them I know that may not have the resources, but the kind of innovativeness which they have shown and its usefulness to the grassroots level is very well defined. So I was really very happy and would like to thank FICCI on behalf of my colleagues also, Dr. Biswas and Seema, who had done a extremely good job of this. So with these few words, I'm really happy to participate in this award ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your guidance and all the support that you have given to us. And you rightly mentioned last time we came out with a booklet, and this year also, as you have advised, we'll definitely come out with select case studies where we'll capture all those entries which we have received, and we'll do a wider dissemination, and particularly reach out to those people who are current non-users so that they are also encouraged to look at this technology for their operations. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to the award presentation ceremony, we have different categories. So what I'll do is I'll just category wise I'll mention about the winners and about the project. So I request my colleague to share his screen and put up the presentation.
Sure, sir.
The first category is geo enablement for citizen, and the award in this category goes to MP State Electronics Development Corporation, MPSEDC, for the project GIS-based online land use certificate for Directorate of Town and Country Planning. And we have with us Shri Mukesh Chandragupta, who is the Commissioner Town and Country Planning, along with his colleagues Shri Abhijit Agrawal, who is the MD of MPSCDC, and Shri Anshul Gupta, who is the additional MD MPSCDC. Dr. Sandeep Goyal is also there. So the entire team is there. So I request Dr. Mukesh Chandra to kindly acknowledge the award and also speak a few lines or few words about the project.
Thank you, FICCI, for recognizing FICCI and jury for recognizing our efforts. We started this online land use certificate system because we used to face a problem. Whenever somebody used to come to our office and wanted to know its land use, it was very difficult, and he used to go around offices and offices. So we started this land use certificate online system. This is a GIS-based system, and a citizen has to come to our portal, and he can apply online. He can see its land use online. If he wants a certificate, he can pay the fee online, and he immediately gets a certificate. So this system, we have already provided the services to more than 16,000 applicants, and government has got a revenue of more than 77 lakh already. This is a very easy to operate, easy to use, and people also get information through SMS and email. So I think it's a very useful online system which we are providing our services to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there will be a lot of benefits which citizens will avail out of this project. And going forward, this is definitely going to grow further. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.
The next category is Geospatial Excellences in Business Application. And the award goes to Asteria Aerospace for the project Site Selection for Setting Up Retail Fuel Network via Digital Analysis of Vehicular Traffic through Drone-Based Aerial Intelligence. So may I request Mr. Srikanth Ramesh Thakkar, Vice President, Enterprise Solutions, to kindly acknowledge the award and say a few words about the project.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumit. First of all, thank you so much to the FICCI Geospatial Committee and the jury chaired by Dr. Nayak for selecting us amongst many capable entries that they would have received. It's a real pleasure for us to be receiving this award. Further, we would want to express our gratitude to Reliance BP Mobility for their evangelist mindset. Customers with evangelist mindset, they not just bring up the problem statement, but as a part of the implementation, they also worked with us through the implementation and gave us timely feedback so that we could scale this up to make sense for business from a profitability perspective. Last but not the least, being a representative of the grit and perseverance of Esteria's product and project teams, who worked tirelessly to make this happen, which brought not just delight to our customer, but we reached a stage where we could make this as an exemplary example for demonstrating the technology for business gains. One of the key messages that I would want to give on behalf of our colleagues at Esteria is, the conviction that we've had to provide unique solutions to unique problems that India faces. And what better could it have been other than, traffic-based solutions? We all know the difference between traffics, the way they are in other countries versus the way it works in India. So, it was something that we had decided that we don't want a clear lift and shift of solutions that have been implemented elsewhere, which also meant the entire grind that it took for our teams to go through. But the biggest gain that we had was that, it eliminated all the doubts or the concerns that anybody may have had in not just Esteria's, but overall India's capability to innovate and solve our problem for ourselves. Thank you very much once again, and appreciate all the thought processes that have gone into giving us this award.
Thank you, Srikanth. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your entire team.
Thank you.
Well, in the same category, which is excellence in business application, jury felt that there's another entry which is sort of equally good, though as initially Dr. Naik also mentioned, all were very good entries which we received. So this is a particular entry which the jury felt is sort of an equally good and needs to be recognized. Therefore, the jury has decided to confer a special jury awards in the same category, and this goes to ESRI for the project Store Network Expansion Strategy. So may I request Mr. Agendra Kumar to kindly acknowledge the award and say a few words about the project?
Thank you, Sumit. Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, this was a project done by us for Yum Foods, and basically the application was expansion of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, outlets in different areas. So basically looking at the basically site selection application, looking at the demography of an area, what are the spaces available, what's the catchment area. So using all these data points, they decide about where to open the next outlet. So that's the, and it made easier for them to choose the place and make the decision based on data and not really based on just thinking that, okay, this place might be better than another place. So analytics, GIS-based analytics really helps this company in making informed decisions about opening the new outlet. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your entire team. So now we move on to the next category of award, which is Geospatial Excellence in Governance. And the award in this category goes to National Informatics Center, NIC, for the project One Map GIS Portal for Noida and Greater Noida. So I believe from Noida side, we have Mrs. Ritu Maheshwari, who is the CEO of Noida, joined us on the call. And we also have NIC team, Mr. Amit Bhargav and his team is also here. So requesting them to kindly acknowledge the award and say a few words about the project.
Am I audible, sir? Good morning, everybody.
Yes, please.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Shri Narendra Bhushan, the then CEO of Greater Noida, for giving us and having faith in NIC for execution of this project. And this project is something like you have to prepare. And I also want to express my gratitude to Shri Vishnu Chandra, then DDG, who was there on guiding us. And this project is about creating a large-scale map in which objects more than 20 centimeters are available. Then all the assets of the authority, maybe it is the plots, maybe it is the street lights, maybe it is the sewer manholes, and anything is linked to their MIS. And this will actually, and I would also like to express my gratitude to Srimati Ritu Maheshwari for giving us the project for Noida in the same lines of Greater Noida. So what we did is what we have actually all the elements of the authority, we have integrated them with the MIS. And then when you see on a click on a particular button, you can see who the owner of we have obtained real-time web services for the plots, for the and other activities. Even the project work like uh, uh, resurfacing of the roads, patchworks, and attendance of the sweepers, and uh, uh, vehicle navigation for solid waste like mechanical sweeping, manual sweeping, and even bioremediation waste are integrated in this application. And the authority has in the initial go, in the first go, the authority was able to identify plots more than 600 crores for selling it out. And then in a monthly basis, the authority says about a revenue around 3 to 5 crores in these activities of manual remediation and manual attendance, which were earlier done manually. Now they are done by this portal. Uh, Vehicle navigation and others. So that's about it. And this one map has gained very much trend. It has gone to other places as well. It is now being implemented in Chandigarh and UP SIDA and maybe in Punjab also. So thank you so much for the award.
Sir. And congratulations to your team and to the Noida Authority as well. So moving forward, the next category is Geospatial Excellence in Sustainable Development. And the award in this category goes to Meghalaya Basin Management Agency for the project Community-Led Landscape Management Project, which is CLLMP. And may I request Mr. Sampath Kumar, who is the project director of CLLMP, to kindly receive the award and share a few words about the project. In case
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you for this award. In fact, Meghalaya has been working with a clear strategy how to leverage the digital technology and also the youth. So we have trained about 14,000 youth, on this entire technologies in the villages. So we have we have been actually using this technology, very, effectively to map the natural resources and also to use this technology, how actually communities can address their problems like, there is a water shortage, how to fix the water shortage in a spring shed area. So it's a lot of work is happening, and I'm very happy to have received. In fact, this community-led landscape management project is one of the projects we are implementing with the assistance of World Bank. And this project is also, the idea is to really bring that community-led movement, how to actually demystify the technology, make it available to the people, young people, so that they can use it. It is not only the domain of the experts, but also, how people can use it. So that's the idea with which we are working, and I'm very glad to see this. That FICCI has come up with this entire appreciation process, and we are really grateful to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and congratulations to you and your team. And I'm sure this project will definitely improve livelihood opportunities and overall quality of life of people.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Moving forward, the next category is Geospatial Technology Innovation. And the award in this category goes to RMSI Private Limited. for the project development of dynamic web-based composite risk atlas and decision support tool for cyclone and associated impacts. So may I request Dr. Sushil Gupta, who is the Vice President of Risk Modeling and Insurance, RMSI, to kindly acknowledge the award and share a few words about the initiative.
Sumit, Dr. Gupta is currently in a workshop at National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA. So he has just expressed that he will not be in a position to speak right now, and just told and thanked the jury and everyone for this appreciation.
Yeah, sure. So he did message to us before the program. He's connected on this call, but he may not be able to speak. So I was just trying by any chance if he's free. So,
Yes.
but congratulations to RMSI and the entire team who has been involved in this particular project. Well, the jury also felt that there is one more initiative in the same category of technology innovation which must be recognized. And so they decided to confer a special jury award for in this particular category to Odisha Space Application Center. And this is for the project village-wise plot level analysis of paddy crop growing areas in different crop seasons for the state of Odisha. And I believe Mr. Pramod Kumar Parida is on the call, and I request him to kindly acknowledge the award and say a few words about the initiative.
Hello,
Yes, please go ahead.
this is Mr. Parida. Actually, this project, we are thankful that this project is awarded by FICCI. This project is the village-wise plot level analysis of paddy crop growing areas in different crop seasons for the state of Odisha. Actually, this project is sponsored by Food Supplies and Consumer Welfare Department, Government of Odisha. Actually, this project is taken off in 21-22 in Kharif and Rabi seasons. It is first taken the 7 districts of Odisha. Then there are 17 districts under Rabi crop. So it is implemented in both the thing. And what government got profited because it's a transparent process. Earlier, what they are doing, the farmers they were actually registering through a portal for selling their paddy. As you know, there is a MSP of Government of India which is being implemented by every state. So in that rate, the farmers used to actually sell their paddies to the government. So, but it is being observed by the department that many of the farmers they are fake registers, and though they are not cultivating paddy, but they were procuring from the adjacent states, and they were selling paddy through to the government in the MSP whatever rate Government of India fixed. This 21-22, they approached Odisha Space Application Center to make a transparent process to verify that whether the registered farmers they are actually cultivating paddy or not. What we did, so generally the Kharif starts here at Odisha from July to actually its period is up to October, November. So what we did, we procured monthly satellite data for every month from starting the paddy plantation to harvest, and we verified those registered farmers plots, and we then found out that there are very fake actual farms which maybe they are not cultivating, but these farms actually the farmers they were claiming for actually selling the paddy to farmers. So we identified that, and we informed the government that these are these plots where, and also we have provided a mobile app to verify, because you see it is a very sensitive issue denying to some farmer that you are not eligible to sell your paddy, so that the farmer itself and the government officer they go to their field and they provided that through that mobile app, because every farmer because these they are the plots are georeferenced, and the center of the plots one can navigate through the mobile app and reach, so that farmer as well as the officer will reach and they confirm that there is no paddy, so that there is no agitation, because they see that they told that you see your field is being verified by the satellite imagery, and you have a fake registration. That's why your paddy is not to be procured by the government. So in that way, that Kharif and Rabi, around something like 1,800 crores government of Odisha saved through this process. So it is this project is being continued by the government of Odisha, and by this process, actually the genuine farmers, they are getting benefited, and there are some the fake farmers, they are being registered to sell their price. So this is a unique project actually adopted by government of Orissa. So we are thankful to FICCI that they have recognized our work and awarded this actually award. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think it's a great initiative which we have taken, and I'm sure it will bring a lot of benefits to the farmers, as you just mentioned.
Oh,
So,
that's right. Because small farmers, who, when they were not able to sell their prices through this process, they are now able to sell their actually paddy to the government. So that is
sure.
a benefit actually that is obtained.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your entire team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So with this, we come to the conclusion of the awards presentation. Congratulations to all the winners and to all, and also to those who couldn't get the award this time, but their entries were equally good. And all this couldn't have been possible members. So a special thanks from our side to all our jury, Dr. Nayak, who chaired this jury, and to other members, Dr. Biswas, Professor Seema Mehra Parihar, and Dr. Samir Saran. Thank you to all the members for their efforts and making this happen. So, so what we will do is, since the program we have done virtually, the certificate and the trophies we will be sending to the respective offices of the winners. So we'll be in touch with your offices, and we'll ensure that the trophy and the certificate reaches you soon. So with those words, I request Dr. Anirudh Roy, who is the co-chair of FICCI Committee on Geospatial Technology, to deliver his concluding remarks and propose vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Sumit. Thank you so much. It was heartwarming to see so many award winners here. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure today as we celebrate this achievement of some truly remarkable organizations and individuals in the field of geospatial technology. On behalf of FICCI Geospatial Committee, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for joining here today. So firstly, I would like to extend a warm thank you to all the nominees who participated in this year's award, and your incredible work has helped shape the future of geospatial technology, and we are really honored to recognize your contribution here today. To the awardees, congratulations on your outstanding achievements. Your hard work and dedication have set a standard of excellence in the field of geospatial technology. We are proud to recognize your accomplishment, and we look forward to seeing the impact you will continue to make in the future. I would like a moment to acknowledge the contributions of our eminent jury members, which is chaired by Dr. Sailesh Nayak, who is Director, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, and who is also the former Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. The other members of the jury, Professor Raviduti Biswas, Head, GIS, School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, Professor Seema Mehra Parihar, Fellow Delhi School of Public Health and Department of Geography, Kirumal College, University of Delhi, and of course, Dr. Samir Saran, who has also actively worked at the background, who is a scientist in the Institute of Remote Sensing, Dehradun. So the jury members who took the time to review the nominations and select the deserving winners. So your expertise and dedication in the field of geospatial technology are truly admirable. I would also like to thank all the partners who have generously supported this event. Without your support, the events like this would not have been possible. Finally, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all the members of this FICCI Geospatial Committee for organizing this event. Your tireless efforts and dedication in promoting this geospatial technology have truly made a difference. Once again, thank you everyone who has made this event a success. We look forward to continue to celebrate the achievements of those who are driving innovation and progress in geospatial technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair, for sharing your perspective and also for the encouraging remarks. With this, we come to the conclusion of the inaugural session in which the award ceremony was done. Now we have a panel discussion policy to practice, actions to translate provisions of geospatial policy into desired outcomes. And the session would be chaired and moderated by Dr. Vishnu Chandra, former DGG NIC Government of India. And we have a very eminent panel, Mr. Nikhil Kumar, President, Geospatial MapMy India, Mr. Prashant Joshi, General Manager, Geospatial Advocacy, ESRI India, Dr. Manusri Lahiri, Director, ML Infomap, uh, Mr. Saurabh Rai, Global Head Analytics, AI and Geospatial Tech Mahindra, and Mr. Atanu Sinha, Founder and CEO, Allstack. So over to you, Dr. Chandra, to conduct this particular session.
Thank you, Sumit. And it is a great and proud privilege for me to chair and moderate this session on policy to practice, actions to translate provisions of geospatial technologies for desired outcomes. And this is really a need of our National Geospatial Policy 2022 is a very progressive and forward-looking visionary policy. And it is trying to make India world leader in geospatial domain, bring economic benefit, and to achieve in year to come 5 trillion economy for the country, ease of doing business with greater participation from private sector, industry, academia, and various other stakeholders, and improving overall quality of life and improving system and service delivery where geospatial can play a major role. It lists out well-defined action points which needs to be translated into practice and a complete action plan for next 15 years or so. And it is a big challenge to translate those action points into reality, and it can happen through a collaboration and cooperation among various stakeholders from government, from private sector, from startups, from academia, and various players who are playing a major role in this area. With these initial points, in fact, FICCI has already listed out the discussion points, and I will request each one of the panelists, which are great expert in their respective domains, to speak maybe 3 to 4 minutes. And first, I will request Mr. Nikhil, President Geospatial MapMy India, to speak on first point, ways to sanitize stakeholders and users on benefits of policy. Now, that is a very great challenge, how to create stakeholder level awareness so that they can quantify the action points and plan their activities for that. Over to Mr. Nikhil.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, FICCI, for bringing me in here for this panel discussion. Well, policy to practice is a very interesting conversation and discussion. And, policy is already in place, so we have to kind of align our thoughts and deliberation or confabulation more within the confines of the policy. So a few things before I start, putting a context, and I'll keep it brief. So we said that by 2025, we will have the governing policy in place wherein we will allow or facilitate the democratization of data, part A. That's a very important part that is to be done by 2025. By 30, we need to put all high resolution topographic map in place. So that's for everybody to have that, and that will be linked with the democratization aspiration that we have set. And the third is digital twin that by 2035 that we need to bring in. So these are the three very high level contours, I will say, within which we need to have a discussion as to how and what that needs to be kind of thought through to actually bring it into practice. My first thing goes in when we talk about democratization. What do we democratize? Something which is commodity. Unless it is commoditized, how can we democratize? Bringing this whole of maps, apps, solutions, and bringing this into a commodity shape is something which is the first step towards our aspiration of democratization. What does it require? So the policy says 2-3 things which I'll try to bring in. One is the fundamental geospatial data theme. That's a very important part. There are 14 fundamental themes that we speak about. That talks about NGDR, National Geospatial Data Registry. I think it talks about Unified Geospatial Interface, UGI. Now that we have all these 14 properly mentioned, and the stakeholder for all these 14 is also well articulated within the document itself as to who is going to be the custodian of that, who is going to create that, who is going to manage that. That's also is clearly for each of the layers who the stakeholder would be, who the who will be responsible for that is already outlined properly. So creation of that. So that's, and seeing the gap as to where is the gap in terms of our ability to commoditize/democratize. That's part number one. Second, about putting that into this NGDR, National Geospatial Database Registry. I mean, we have done that. Country has done a lot of such data registry. That's not a big deal, but putting spatial data of different and diverse types, of different and diverse themes in different and diverse formats into a registry is a very important, which requires a lot of IT other than the geospatial tool to be in place. And third and most important is the UGI, the manner in which the form and factor which derives how are we going to share that, a simple API. So for the crux to me here is how industry can support all these stakeholders responsible for creating, maintaining, managing, and publishing these effective layers. Industry can play a major role. So identification of the gap, what is required versus what is available, and what is practically possible within the confine of 2025. I'm not talking 5 in mind is very, very important because it has to be scalable. It should not be rewritten. So as to what we want to achieve by 2035 is something sets for us as to how do we begin now. So that's one criteria. The second is doing the gap analysis. Third, how do we engage with industry? Huge amount of there are different type of industry. Some are very initial startups. Some are already there for 25 years, 30 years, but still struggling to kind of have a base. So this endeavor, wherein you allow industry to participate, will provide them a huge incentive, not only monetarily, also in terms of functionally, to scale in their competencies and provide support in building up this fundamental layer. First, second, this IT aspect of NGDR, wherein you look at something like a platform wherein you do not expose a or WFS, which requires a GIS software to ingest. No, if you are really wanting to democratize, means a fleet management company, a nanny finder company, a gaming company, all should be able to consume these APIs into their application without having to know the nuances of geospatial. So it should be so easy. What UGI, which is in terms of the parlance of UPI, is proposed to be doing. So a lot of technology discussions and capacity creation needs to be discussed through when we talk about National Geospatial Data Registry, which is kind of a single source of truth, which different data will be coming in, and through UGI, which is kind of an interface, but it is actually coming through the NGDR. So this part, which again I'm repeating, geospatial data fundamental theme, the National Geospatial Data Registry, and the access of a unified geospatial interface is the key which will put this entire policy into implementation or practice, as the phrase goes.
Thank you, Nikhil. And you have thrown a great insight in terms of various components for democratization of geospatial data and technology and services. And these are the basic foundations which has to be further worked on with various stakeholders and create awareness among them how they should, what you call, further work out their requirements. So with these, now I request Mr. Prashant Joshi from ESRI to speak about how to uh, create necessary, bring stakeholders and bring them on table for on this policy.
Thank you, sir. And thanks, Vicky, for having me as a panelist on this amazing topic, policy to practice, how to put things into action. And as Nikhil very well articulated, how the policy is so well advanced and what lays for the user community, what lays for the private sector to get involved, and the policy directions from Government of India. I believe, sir, what we have to do is we all have to work as one extensive ecosystem to implement this policy. And some of the high priority areas, which I believe is one which is on the adoption side. And the Government of India has to establish or need to move to establish geospatial divisions in each central ministry, state government departments, and PSUs. This is something which is very important because the kind of policy they have developed is very futuristic, the kind of technologies which will be used. So it is very important for the user organizations to understand how they have to adopt that. And for this, one important part is to have the teams, but it has to be led by a very good decision maker who understand the vertical system and the geospatial aspect as well. So what will happen is if this division or a unit can also act as a geospatial champion for that particular department and help the department to understand the requirements which are laid in the policy concerning to the fundamental themes, strengthening the geospatial infrastructure, establishing a collaborative geo platform, or practicing the IGI framework or any other means. Also, as Nikhil touched upon the data sharing model, if we have these champions, they will understand the value of data sharing. They will understand how the platforms which will be required to share the data, to collaborate the data. And today, what is happening also is the industry puts a lot of efforts in creating the demand for adoption of geospatial technologies. With this new system, where we have the total mindset change, the government will start asking for a reliable data and system. This step indeed will be a game changer for our sector. Along with this, sir, last year NSDI initiative there was an initiative from NSDI for an interim data sharing framework. I think now is the time to develop it as an integrated data sharing framework where departments are encouraged to share all kinds of data while keeping national security interest in mind. So to begin with, these are my words, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. You have also raised a very prominent or important issue on data sharing, integrated data sharing, and the framework for data exchange required, and to build kind of necessary institutional structure at all levels of decision making, starting from central government, state, maybe district and local board bodies level also. So these are the good takeaway from what you have made the initial points. Now I request one of the industry leader, Dr. Manusi Lahiri, Director ML Info, on the issue of how to sanitize stakeholders on policy so that they can take best benefit out of it. You are mute, madam. You are mute.
I think I've unmuted now.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, I've been listening very carefully to what my previous speakers have mentioned. Now, when you use the word sanitize, I'm not very sure that I understand, but what I think, to make available what data and solutions can be shared with end users, there are certain things in practice that need to be done, actions that need to be taken. The first of this is, to my mind, to have some kind of a benchmark where today, as of today, we can say that, look, one of the main purposes of the policy is to share available data. So why do we not today say all, and most of this data that needs to be shared is clearly with government departments, because it's the taxpayers' money created data that one is talking about. So instead of saying, let us get everybody, every department, every government organization, every project that has taken place on board, I would say, let us do a step-by-step. Let's take a step-by-step measure, like all departments and organizations that are willing and able and comfortable sharing their data today. Let us create a benchmark of that for this year and now. And this, we should not insist on a technically correct metadata, which requires clear understanding both of the data and a certain amount of effort also in documentation of it. What I would suggest is to make this, as I'm saying, only those data sets that the organizations are willing and able to share. Let us have a very simple template for them to put in data-related information and share it. So whether it is businesses, government departments, end users, startups, whoever want to use that data will know at the first instance what is available to them. I think this is a very simple idea, a simple template that says, I have done 5 projects, but I'm willing to share data only of this project belonging to this extent over the country. So you have a data set name, you have what is the unit at which it's collected, what extent it is, who is the contact. Very simple, high-level information that can be shared. This is one of my suggestions. I know it is simple and it can be done. It's important to do because it can be done step by step. And straight away makes available to a large number of users, almost like a catalog of what is available today. I have a second point, of course, which is related to this. A lot of people who are going through the guidelines to make the policy into practice come across this document that needs to be signed, the self-certification document. I brought up this point earlier too, but with a larger number of people here today, I'd like to mention it again, which is that I think some amount of clarity is required about what is the purpose of this document, who should sign it, and what are the responsibilities that you take once you sign this document. If this document is controversial or even creates a little bit of hesitancy among people who need to use the data or solutions, it is not going to be very good for converting policy to practice. And to my mind, the most difficult bit is the first point, which is, of course, taking responsibility for actions of your suppliers and your contractors. Because really, legally speaking, you cannot do that. They are also legal bodies, and their Most of them are registered under Companies Act or something else, just like you yourself are. So I think this particular document needs a revisit if we want large number of users to happily sign it. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. In fact, you have brought a very relevant point in terms of benchmark for data sharing and how to immediately begin the process of sharing of the data by various stakeholders in a simplistic manner without getting into a lot of technical things, a basic fundamental high level information, how they can share. Other point in terms of self-certification, yes, I do believe it may require certain more clarity because it, as it also linked to the issues of authentication, reliability of data. So how this self-certification process can be more better, and instead of creating a hindrance in data sharing, it should be more positive and helping in that direction. So on the same question, I invite next panelist, Mr. Saurabh Rai, Global Head Tech Mahindra, to give his views how on stakeholders awareness on policy aspect.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks to all the fellow panelists for raising all the relevant issues. Now, there are few things that immediately caught my attention, not that they were not there all along. One of them being the role of government, second being role of industry. Luckily, I am happily sitting in the middle of all these policy changes, and it will be wrong to say that we have not benefited by the changes in policy or not looking at opportunities as a company, as an industry with the change in policy. Now, the role of different stakeholders here are, and yes, it's been a long journey that most of us are aware that we have gone through. The question is where now from here? See, government owns maximum amount of data collected on taxpayers' money. Simple solution is make it available so long as it doesn't hinder country's security, and make it available in a form and fashion that it can be reused. Now here comes the industry. Now that the opportunities are available to us to utilize this data set, to create new data sets, can we not go that extra mile to deliver projects which are slightly larger, bigger, more impactful, and more closer to actual outcome on the ground? That's my appeal to my teams as well as to rest of the industry. Nurture that ecosystem. I mean, the biggest fears of yesteryears are gone. Yes, there are issues of signing certain documents totally, except what Manushi said. I mean, I can own my actions, but I cannot control everybody else's actions, especially given that they are companies. So with those in light, yes, there are nuances that need to be still sharpened. And we as a body of FICCI, we as industry champions surely need to put those representations to further simplify the, the need for policy clarity beyond what has already been done. But going beyond that, what is more critical and what is more crucial is that people who have finally put their trust on the industry, buy a single certification, you go do whatever you want, so long as you are not messing with the law. Let's repose that faith back in terms of creating that ecosystem of growth. The opportunities are immense, uh, both for Indian companies in India, for foreign companies partnering with Indian companies, and also making GIS the underpinning of almost every digital initiative that is happening today. So those are my starting words. My view is that, again, to recap, the policy can further be clarified, simplified. However, the onus is now on us industry to make the most or the most important and best commercial usage of what's available in front of us, which was not there. So with that.
Thanks, Saurabh, and for your positive remark and how to move from government data to industry-based, what you call solutions to have right impact at right place. So this is the message which you have given, and industry has now huge responsibility to take it forward. And policy should be tuned and fine-tuned in that direction with more details, with participation of various stakeholders. Now, with these words, I raise the same question to next panelist, Mr. Atanu Sinha, who is from ELTS CEO. So please, Atanu.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra, and thank you, FICCI, for inviting me to this panel. Pleasure to be here. And I'm going to raise the points more from a startup standpoint, though I have been with the industry for quite some time. The challenges there were different, but the challenges as a startup is very different when you're looking at from the overall geospatial ecosystem standpoint. Okay, definitely, this policy has been a great enabler. But enablement is one part of it. Execution is the other part of it, which needs to be driven by key performance indicators that this is how we are progressing. And there has to be certain goals based on timelines, which says that this is what we have done. Being as a startup, one of the key criteria then we look at, and typically we are not from a data creation standpoint, but we are developing technologies which are based on in-house capabilities that we have. So we are trying to become a technology player by using the data that is available within the country, right? And for us to be successful and drive solutions that drive outcomes, availability of data is more important. And as Dr. Manasi Lahiri said very correctly, we can have a Sigma 6 operation, but if we do not have an operation, we cannot reach the Sigma 6 operation. So it's very important for us to start sharing the data. And I'll give you a small example to this. If I look at a state mining department, in case of when you're starting mining, you need land records data, you need ownership data, you need environmental data, you need pollution data, you need a huge amount of data, and all this data is available to various government departments, right? Are we making it available? Is it easy for us to make it available? Second, from the policy standpoint, what I think is that, is there an ownership of this particular policy being implemented for sharing of data? And if it is not there, then what happens to that, right? Because if this is not there in place, the technology development will obviously take a step back in terms of driving outcomes. The other thing is that when we are looking at a startup and when we are coming into any project, even if it is a large project or a small project, there has to be an ecosystem which is encouraging startups to participate in that, right? That's where you develop the technology. That's where you come out with clear definition of scope to arrive at certain milestones where you get payments out of it, right? We as startups are very, very critically looking at the cash flows and the outcomes that every project needs to be successful, but at least the payments needs to come on time. That's the challenge that we face when you are talking about just not data, but an overall solution to develop this ecosystem. I think it's very important that we look at that. Nikhil spoke about NGDR, data repository, UGI, and things like that. These are all steps, larger goals, but these larger goals needs to be defined and broken down to milestones, which are very relevant for us to startups to also align with the government initiatives and say that this is what is going to happen. And this is the step that I can take as an ecosystem and invest into that, right? Investment from startup standpoint is very important for the overall ecosystem of how you become a self-reliant or Atmanirbhar Bharat. The other thing is that there are many initiatives that has come from defense sector space. We need to go beyond that, and we need to look at how the civilian side of things is adopting and coming out with a very clear definition of their problem statements and give grants, aids, and adopt this whole startup ecosystem. That's my initial points, but I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Atanu. In fact, you have brought the context of a startup and how requirement for investment vis-a-vis outcome, and also clear-cut defining of the milestone against the action points which has been reflected in the policy. That is very important. And this initial round of the discussion, the point in context of stakeholders which has emerged are starting from various activities like NGDR, further UGI, and so on, and moving from data sharing, which is very important, and having a benchmark for data sharing, I can call it standards, and then certification process. All these need a fine tuning, and moving from data to product, services, and solutions. Now, this is what, in nutshell, which has come out with that. Now, in next round, as I said, this need further clarity by industry, and also more to bring more innovation with innovative business models and to create more opportunities to work. Now, I would like to hear from Mr. Nikhil what further clarity industry on to take it forward from stakeholder awareness, what industry needs in terms of more clarity, and what kind of business model, innovative business model, and to create further work and opportunities. You are mute, Nikhil.
Sorry, this is kind of paraphrasing what I said initially. And you asked me the same question again. But let me try to get a little deeper. So various questions came in terms of data.
Because other people have also given views, so you may have more ideas.
Yeah, so few things. Let me go backwards. So Atanu talked about startup and how that needs to be kind of brought down in terms of, I will say, smaller milestone rather than a bigger milestone is already given. So by 2025, you have to have an enabling infrastructure to allow everything to be consumed in this box called NGDR and accessed or shared through what called UGI. It's a very, very, I will say, simple articulation. But here we are not about policy, we are about practice. So how that needs to be put in place is what I deliberated in my first part. And there is a timeline. The good thing is this policy is they have very clearly articulated everything as to by when we should have what. But I will pick up a few things. So one is in terms of the timeline, milestone, big things, how these big things need to be kind of put in place, rightly so. So that was Atanu, and especially to kind of infuse the startup ecosystem. Atmanirbhar he talked about. So that's one question I will talk about. Ma'am talked about two things in terms of ensuring as to what should the benchmark be, A, and second also how with a simple access all the data needs to be consumed. And third, if I guess, is more about the definitions of data and metadata in the system. So that was the second part. The third part, which is Saurabh talked about, and even if he didn't talk about, let me talk on his behalf, is more as to how we integrate the ICT part in the platform. And Prashant talked about the infrastructure part. So these are few things that I come in mind, which I will again rephrase. So going with Atanu, that's exactly the point I'm making. The policy talks about all funded project related data to be available through the state or central level nodal agency in the form of simple access to the NGDR, which will be kind of a mother system through which everything will flow, both in and out. So people have to create the enabling system to facilitate access within NGDR and then through NGDR to the UGI. So UGI will be both. That's the way to accept data and that the way to share the data. So that's very clearly articulated. What needs to be done is how the devil lies in detailing. What is the methodology, the schema, the architecture that we are putting in place and who are we working with and with what timeline is what I believe Atanu is talking more about. The higher milestone is already there, but the granular part he's talking, if I have understood it well. And what is the initial part? How are you trying to do that? How have you created any cross industry system through which you are doing the deliberation and finalizing that? So that's the part that I emphasize. I'm part of few conversation in which I have seen that the DST has already taken a step forward in that direction. So that's the reason why I'm talking about that. The second part, in terms of the standard, it already says that it will be followed through BIS standards. So all this data, which will be part of the NGDR, has to adhere to the BIS standard. Is already there somewhere in the policy. I cannot actually tell where, but it's already there. On Prashant, your talk of the infrastructure, whether we talk about whatever framework, whether the integrated unified framework, GDI, the geospatial data infrastructure, the policy talks about it. And they have also taken upon and borrowed the UNGGIM deliberation on that, and also frameworks suggested by that. And it talks very detailed aspect of that. And you also said there should be a body who should be able to kind of formulate that. So GDPTC is that body under which there is an industrial input taken through GIDB. Geospatial Industrial Development Board is created in order to bring in all aspects, all voices. So that provision is already put in place. Whoever has written this policy, I will say that kudos to him, because he has done a very thoughtful. He's been very thoughtful in terms of putting that all in place. Now, so that's the third point that I was trying to bring in. Now, with all these things in place and talked through in detail, to the extent that if you go to the democratization part, it actually talks about we need to decide on the national geodetic framework. It talks about as to what should be the geoid model for the entire country. Now, for various applications that we are talking about, and Atanu was talking about investment. Now, how would investment happen? When you have all these layers already put in place for different kind of an application and easily shareable information through public funding, or volunteer organization has the ability to allow that data to be accessed through NGDR for people to consume it, either through commercial option, which is also there in the policy, or value-added reselling. It's also talked about. Once you have that, you are able to address more and more applications. The more and more application you are able to beyond the geospatial application, not just again going back to creating the fundamental theme, but solving the real world problem, solving the logistics problem, solving the traffic problem, solving the for which various awards were given to a commercial organization where to set up its shop. All these kind of problems we start solving through this simple UGI access, the more value will be created for geospatial infrastructure, and that will drive the investment. Once that investment comes in, and we have good amount of non-government project pushing us or fostering us in terms of the growth of the geospatial industry, the more government will be also encouraged to put in place. And that's where I was talking about the help of private sector, especially the startup in Atmanirbhar. They talk about the whole continuum of collection to processing to management to modeling to visualization to analyzation to sharing. All Indian companies has to be given conducive environment in the word or phrase, if I recall correctly, given in the policy. And while nodal agency will be the custodian, but they do not need to necessarily be involved in creation of that. And that needs to be given to the private sector. Now, that is a huge incentive, I will say, for the startup community to be able to provide that support and thereby scale or ramp up their capability. And in that part, which nobody touched upon, is also the skill development part, which is talked very deeply, and also the registration part. The survey registration part is already talked about in order to ensure that the quality of both the data and the produce is properly organized. So again, so these are the crux that I want to talk about, that this has been brought in detail. The only thing that needs to be, we as an organization also need to bring in, and we will have a very structured voice once the GIDB is set up, GDPTC is set up. The industrial, appointment has happened, right? The government appointment has happened. Now, GIDB, I do not know as I speak whether it's already put in place or not. That needs to be put in place. And DST has to create a lot of working committees through GIDP or on their own, which will do recommendation to GDPDC. These two things that we as a ecosystem need to work a lot with DST in order to ensure that that happens in a timely manner. And the discussions that needs to kind of follow is based on what has been already articulated in detail in the policy. So we don't need to go back to the policy and say, you know, this is my issue, this is my issue. I don't see there is much of issue. It's all the issues that Atanu said. It requires to be put in practice part, which is not an issue. In fact, it is more of an urgency that needs to be brought in putting in place in a structured manner, that who is doing it, how are we doing it, with what timeline we have that in our mind. If we are able to put that through, I think, we are for a very good start.
Thank you, Nikhil. In fact, you have moved from high-level details and policy to more granular things. And as you said, further institutional structure, maybe initiative taken by DST to further bring stakeholders on to go for more details, to bring data to product and services, involve industry, and create a larger ecosystem for value-added systems and services delivery. Now I request Prashant to further elaborate his idea on same aspect which Nikhil has spoken.
Right, sir. There's a question which talks about areas provision where industry needs more clarity. I think Nikhil emphasized on that clarity aspect, what all the policy talks about in details, and I think it's all clear to everyone. And as I said previously, the policy is really well advanced, looking with the timelines. But what industry needs is not the clarity, but I believe that industry is still in an adolescent stage. And when I say industry, it's not only the private sector, I'm talking about the overall ecosystem, where they need to understand if the policy is talking about IGI framework, how IGI framework is going to assist or help the user organizations. So the efforts needs to be moved on those directions. And in the timeline, if we'll say, till 2025, the first 2 years are very crucial because they are going to be the founding layers. The foundation stones are going to be laid over here. And if we are able to convince the user department, what we are talking about data sharing, if it starts happening, obviously the innovation will come, the startups will always start growing. But the overall data sharing model or the shared economy business is all dependent on location till policy was not there. But when this happens, imagine how people who are working on AI, ML, and other technologies will bring in this data, and this will be a boom to the industry or to the overall ecosystem. Along with this, what I'll also say, well, the need of the industry is also, as Akmu talked about on the side of the payment, I believe also there is the need from the industry is to work with DST or the Geospatial Industrial Development Board, which will be set up, is to work on developing the RFPs or understanding of the RFPs which are coming up, to help them build those RFPs, which I think will be more clear, which will give due respect to the GIS projects or the geospatial projects where they should be. And also in those RFPs, even the payment terms can be done as you work, the workflow and the payment flow can be matched together. Along with this, one more point which I would like to bring is how we can create an opportunity for the industry when the policy talks about the taking India into the world level. I think we are already catering to the world services very nicely, but there is still a lot of exposure for our startups, and Indian government should put efforts with country to country engagements where Indian companies can do business with the outside world as well. So these are my few points.
Thank you. In fact, you have also raised a very relevant point to move towards more granularity, and you have talked about an appropriate ecosystem for RFPs, which defines clear-cut cash flows and payment requirements. Now, standardization of RFPs, all those things will depend on how different stakeholders or nodal agencies formulate their requirements. And there could be in government and METI and at various other organizations, standard RFP design is also being promoted. So
yeah, that's what when I said in earlier point, we need to have geospatial champions. I didn't meant to have geospatial, what is there in the policy, but to have those champions in the state departments, make them bring aware.
Yeah, I agree.
Policy is clear.
Yeah. So now I request Dr. Manusi Lahiri on what kind of clarity industry needs and how we should further move towards innovative business models and solutions and more opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. Clearly, granularity is very, very important when it comes to solving operational problems, irrespective of what sector it is. There can be no two thoughts about it. But I want to focus on something else, which is when you said that we need to, clarity. Let's talk about clarity. I think there is one area in the policy and definitely in the guidelines that I would like added for clarity, which is about the NAVIC system. There's no information on it at all. And I think what would be very interesting is to know what kind of timelines for civilian use is in mind, what the government thinks about it, because, it's all very well for people who work in government and get these informations formally or informally, but people who are outside the government also need to have plans for the future, need to know what, not just dates, but say what protocols, what devices, where do we go for them? So I think some amount of information on NAVIC is expected and should be included. It's something that we should work towards. And if I'm certain, there are a lot of projects that are not coming up where it is mentioned as a possibility, as a system to be used in future. So I would say that this is one area which is a lacuna in the guidelines, and we need to incorporate some information relating to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Manusi ji. In fact, you had talked about NAVIC system. Definitely, it needs some connect. Maybe space policy, which is in draft stage, maybe dealing with that. But still, there has to be connect with Indian GPS system with CORS network. CORS and geodetic part has already been there. So it also has implication on electronics and survey equipment part. So that is a larger issue when maybe a policy maker, space policy and geospatial policy, those gaps maybe together may be fulfilled in future. That is an important point because I believe there are discussions between Survey of India, DST and ISRO on how to integrate geodetic system using course with say NAVIC system. Some discussions is already happening. So with these words, I request now Mr. Saurabh to take this point forward.
Sure, sir. And thank you everyone again for enlightening all of us. Nikhil mentioned about ICT. Now, let me pick that up and talk of ICT in two parlance. One, we just talked about NAVIC, we talked about geodesy issues, we talked about integrating it with CORS. The data sources are going to just increase and come from a very wide variety of sources. Right now we are just struggling with government procured, government sourced, and sanctioned data. But let's imagine with the drone data coming in, with multiple sources of new satellites going in space, the data is bound to increase both in terms of granularity, quality, and even nature. So that convergence is again a key. Now, whether that convergence comes through a combination of policy and a platform, or that convergence comes through a platform and the policies keep changing over a course of time, that is something very vital and crucial for all of us. Now, India has been pretty successful in creating different national platforms, etc. I mean, our payment platform is in itself is a remarkable achievement. We all are so proud of it. Something of this nature needs to be thought through. Now, again, and this is what needs to come from government first. Now, the new policy provides for the participation, provides for the representation from government and a voice to industry, gives us a lot of freedom and flexibility to go try out things that were not legally possible earlier. So this ICT and the convergence needs to come. And this is where a cross industry, cross government deliberation and a decision needs to be done, not just looking at problems of today, but problems of tomorrow. I mean, the nature of right now, we are worried about problems on land. What about when drones start supplying medicines to home? Who will manage the drone waste? What happens should something happen in the on the defense like what we are seeing in US, in Russia and Ukraine? What would be the protocols to follow? What are the checks and balances? And all this can be controlled and brought to life through a proper ICT solution, looking into convergence of multiple technologies. Again, another point that needs to be thought through is the whole AI, ML, analytics, as we call it, and the real-time data availability. We are still right now talking about data that is post facto. What about real-time data? How do we get it? Somebody picked up on traffic and we got an award, but how do we manage that? Will our current infrastructure be sufficient? Maybe yes, maybe no. These are the kind of projects that need to be thought through. We are talking 2D and 3D in terms of maybe uh, less in terms of physical structures, more man-made structures. But with the whole meta coming in and the whole 3D gaining ground, nobody expects 2D anymore. I mean, everybody wants a three-dimensional view. What are the policies governing there? And slowly, GIS will enter the houses and will enter offices. The whole BIM infrastructure that we keep out of GIS generally is the part of this convergence. Now, these are the different areas of convergence from drone to micro drones to subsurface and subterranean and bathymetric probes to BIM infrastructure. That convergence need to be brought together both in terms of a platform, standards, and some showcases. Now, this is where I feel we can motivate government to launch certain projects and not for today. I mean, convergence looking at 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And we should participate wholeheartedly, either in terms of data, either in terms of tech proficiency that we have, or the platforms that India already has, or need to build, or needs to be bought, whatever that may be. Now, that's my 2 cents, sir, in terms of ICT as a platform and convergence as a general theme that we would want to see from the industry.
Mr. Saurabh, you have brought very, very relevant issue, ICT and convergence. And convergence, not only at data level, but also at product, services, emerging technologies, and how we look down in, say, maybe 20 years down the line. This is a very, very important aspect. And you have talked about cross-industry, cross-domain, inter-government, intra-government, and that is going to be very, very important to build in real-time, non-real-time, static, dynamic, all kind of data sets, and how we can bring the convergence and interoperability and deliver better innovative product and services. This is very, very important. in the entire game of the things. Now I request Atanu to further speak and take it forward. Mute, you are mute.
Thank you, sir. I heard everybody, and I think one of the most important things that we look at success of any policy, any implementation, is driven by two aspects. One is the results that it drives, and second is how much investment it brings in. And I think investment is the critical part where how well you are putting the positive sentiment in people who are investing. And when I'm saying investing, I'm not talking about just government. I'm talking about people who have the money, who have the real money, right? And in startup ecosystem, the most convincing part that needs to be done is in the most simplified way. When we talk about geospatial, I think we complicate things when it comes to saying technology, saying all other things and complications. If we make our communication of this policy and the positivity it brings in terms of outcomes, and this is what the potential is, you will get investment, right? And I think it's most important aspect. If the overall ecosystem I look at, participating as rightly said by Saurav, uh, government, industry, current data players, current technology, AI, ML, at the end of the day, what you are driving is monetization, whether it is data, whether it is technology and things like that. If we make our communication or our pitch very simple, and investments will come. And that's, I think, is critical for any part when it comes to data collection, when it comes to projects, applications, projects, solutions, putting satellites on the sky, getting people to do manufacturing of hardwares. Everything is built into same ecosystem. And I think that needs to be done very, very precisely with clarity and give the confidence to the investor that he is going to double his money in next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, because that's what is critical for us to being successful, right? We should not be seen, geospatial should not be seen as an isolation, but it should be seen as a part of integrated approach in any project. And I think we have to break that shackles to be successful. My simple words, and that will bring all startups to focus on that, because today the number of startups in space application downstream, upstream you have many startups who are getting funding. Because downstream, where you're talking about application platform, they are not getting that kind of a funding.
Okay. Okay. So Atanu, you have made a point that geospatial should not be seen in isolation. It should be part of complete end-to-end digital transformation process. That is very important. And investment based on right outcome will take place. And I say that there has to be public or government investment for public good, and there has to be an ecosystem should lead to outcome based private investment also for public good.
That's right.
Means already content as a services Saurabh in a way has talked about, because non-government content as a service will also be available to be integrated at top of government data and government platform. So that is also going to be a reality in coming time. Now, further, I would like to take it forward. Already, some of the points has already been taken up in one way or other already in discussion. There is definitely a role of industry in generating the demand for skilled workforce, and of course its adoption. Then there is a role of government in terms of increased demand and center state coordination. Prashant in a way talked about that. And then role of startup, Atanu has already spoken about, for geo innovation and for cutting edge technologies. Now, these are the important points in the background of whatever panel has discussed. I would like to have further comments and details from Nikhil. I know you have already touched some of the points, but
So you said three things. You said skill development, one.
Role of industry in terms of demand for a skilled workforce and its adoption. Then role of government in terms of increased demand and center-state coordination. Third is role of a startup in supporting geo-innovation with cutting-edge technologies. Now, these are the already all panelists has touched these points in one way or other.
So I will try to kind of go, very simple. One is role of industry in adoption and creation of skill. One is, I sometimes wonder, we talk a lot about skill development, and that has been my point in all discussions, because we have created a lot of geospatial skill committees. We have also tried previously to create a skill council of its own. Sometimes I wonder, all that skilled manpower that we have in geospatial, are they properly utilized? Are they properly consumed? Sometimes I wonder whether that's the case. And one hand, when we have to ramp up, we find that we struggle to find the right guy at the right time. But at the same time, when we have a bulk of skilled A or B or C type, are we able to kind of create employability? So that's something which needs to be done. And that will be driven from the workload, the investment that we all talked about. If the more investment happens, the more use case is being solved, the more investment will come up. The more investment will come out, the more projects will happen. The more projects will happen, the more requirement will happen. And when the requirement happens, you find a way to scale your manpower. It becomes a mission critical. If I get a 100 crore project wherein I require A, B, or C category of skill, I will find a way to create that. So while for mission critical projects, we might require certain set of skills, and that needs to be done in a very structured way. But the mass that needs to be brought in, I think let that be left on the industry to see as to how they create it. When it comes to getting the benchmark as to who should actually say that this is right or wrong, or service certification, so that we ensure that the quality of things are done through those certification, and for that certification to happen, the skill is definitely something that we need to do. And for that, a industry government participation is already taking place as we speak, in terms of creating that skill council, which will have all the layers in which job roles, description, all that properly identified, and that is happening in place. So industry role in that is to kind of provide them as to what they require, at what quality, and find an institutional mechanism through which these people can be trained. So that's one part from, but the adoption that you talked about is a very important part, and that can only happen if we scale up in terms of our value creation, not only within the geospatial community, much beyond. So that's one part. Second, sir, you said about government role in, can you repeat it for me?
Sir, it is a government role in terms of increased demand and center-state coordination.
So increased demand. So I talked about, to start with, whatever is written in the policy itself says, and I'm again paraphrasing, that for creation of 14 fundamental geospatial theme, there will be nodal agencies, but the nodal agencies alone will not be tasked to create those data, and they need to seek industry support in doing that, which will promote industrial growth through this funding which will be coming from the government. And that's something wherein we want that a proper milestone be put through as to what is the mechanism to kind of execute that plan. Because we talked about, we have gone in detail by saying, oh, this level of detailing that needs to be done for 5 to 10 centimeter in the urban area, 50 to 100 centimeter in the forest and westland area. All this is already put in place. If you want to start executing that and involving industry, and with the emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat, the more work will come in startup way, the more work will come in industry way, and that will drive both skill development, and therein only the coordination at the center will require, either in the central sector, wherein the money is coming from the central side, or even where the state is funding. In both the sites, it will take a mirror. It will become a microcosm of what is being happening at, say, Gati Shakti level. So that's the second part. And what is the third part? What was the third part?
Is a startup in emerging
Startup, I do not see as a third layer. I see a startup somewhere in between, which is going to provide its support and thereby ramping up their capability in both the sides. In the industrial side, in the industry's role in enhancing this creation of fundamental layers or creation of this NGDR or UGI. That's one part. And also using this infrastructure, they are able to provide for or address many use cases. And these use cases are very simple use cases where these are more application providers who are simply consuming this either data or application and then extending it to varied use cases across sectors. And that's where the startup is sitting, which is in the cross section of both these two, either the government side or the industrial side.
Thank you. Thank you. You have brought quite a relevant point in terms of creating a skilling ecosystem and how the support system from government can further unleash innovation in industry, investment in industry, as also integrate startup ecosystem. So that is very important. And now I request Prashant to further take forward his points on these three aspects. You are mute.
Sorry. So with regard to skills, I'd like to put not as a skill, but as a empowering people with knowledge. And I like to make it in three phases. One is the capacity building, which is within the user organization or the industry. How specific user organizations, since they need to keep abreast with the latest technology, needs to update regularly. And this policy also talks about the latest advancement. And this goes to my previous point of having geospatial units or teams in the ministries, because they'll be better able to understand what they need, what kind of training they need. And industry has to be equally important in capacity building because they have to conduct those regular workshops and training programs for these. Second part comes is the professional requirement, which we have, because I believe professional requirement and skill, and I'm defining skill subject as what National Skill Council does it, where they have categorization from people from class 10 to 12 and the progression goes on. So in the professional side, I would really like if DST, the AGI, FICCI, all can work together with AICT or UGC to have GIS or geospatial as a subject in science and technology in each stream, so that we don't have a challenge of having one subject knowledge but not having the GIS knowledge. And we can create interest in this subject through this mechanism. Third part is the skill part. And I think that's the foundation where we talk about assistant surveyors, or digital processing part. Over there, we need to have certification, because in India, at times when the requirement comes in, people do ask, do you are certified skilled person or not? So that will give boost to this. So I'll try to keep the empowerment section in these three ways. Second, sir, which talks about the startup ecosystem, I think policy clearly defines they want to promote startup ecosystem and incubation centers. But what I believe is this also needs support from the major industry players and the government sector. If today, if Survey of India is doing a lot of projects, why not involve the startup ecosystem, have partnership with big industry players where they empower them with technology. Survey of India help them in conducting the projects and help them with a running cash flow. So this can be done. Then also in a similar line, what can be done is they talked about long-term R&D projects. They have to keep a corpus amount for the long-term R&D projects. Okay, if you are investing in this, we are there to back you, we are there to support you. So that is how I look at the startup ecosystem. Third part, where you talked about the government role, sir, I would like to go beyond the policy. Of course, those 14 foundational data themes are going to play a very crucial role for us. But going beyond, what we need to do is we need to have take it for the national development programs, how GIS can be useful in national development programs, not pertaining only to the nodal agencies, but sectors like health, fintech, agriculture. There are massive digital programs which are in these fields. How we can empower these with the geospatial. So there where we would like government also to put efforts and make them aware about the impact and value proposition of GIS in this field, so that a complete level playing field is there. And what we can say is Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas can happen through skill, government support, and developing the startup culture.
Prashant, you have brought certain very relevant point in terms of skilling involving UGC, AICT, MHRD, different levels of certification, different level of categorization of courses, also long-term R&D issues, and GIS requirement in various domains, various cross-cutting domain. Like you talk about agri-tech, fintech, where already digital platforms are being built, how to insert geospatial thing in those things. People are talking about agri-tech stack, but agri-tech stack integrated with geospatial stack, that has to be there. So those has to be, government agencies has to be made aware and maybe guided to tune their requirement in context what you have talked about. And now I request Manushi ji to further take it forward on this aspect.
Skills. Forever we are trying to get the right skilled people for the right job. Now, I've heard Nikhil and Prashant speak. So we've learned a lot from both of them in this matter. I would like to take a completely different point of view. I feel, and I'm speaking from the point of view of a small company. I'm sure things are different when you employ thousands of people. Your perspective will be different. So let me speak about smaller companies, how we look at skill. Everybody, just everybody has to cross-function. There's no two ways about it. And because they have to cross-function, upscaling becomes far more important to us than relying on the market to get skilled people to fit into certain portfolios. This is one part of it. So let's not rely too heavily on other institutions to create that perfect individual that I need for this project. Okay, that's a reality in life. You have to train internally your people. Look at so many large multinational companies, how many certificate programs they make available for their staff to voluntarily do. And they actually get compensated for doing these things, doing these courses. Why do they do it? Why do they make all this available for everybody to select what they want? Because as soon as a position opens up in some country, not even within the country, some country somewhere in some role, and they fit you into it. You opt your services, you say, I have done this, this, this. Over the years, this is my experience in the company. I've upskilled myself by doing these courses. And they're inevitably short courses. They're not like doing a PhD. So I think that is the way to go. And believe me, many companies in India, geospatial companies, are actually informally doing the same. What they're doing is they're helping their staff to upscale by doing various short-term courses. Now, I think that's the right way to go. Also, the other problem is, if you have a person, say, who's a specialist in remote sensing, if tomorrow I need to complete a project where some of the source data comes from remote sensing, that will not be the only source. There will be 5 other different sources of data. Some will be from reports, some will be from maps, some will be from, I don't know what, many other sources, depending on what project you're doing. And if that person is not able to handle all that data and bring them down to a common ground, your project will be stalled. You'll be looking for people all over the market. So I really believe the way to go up is to upscale your internal staff and to make them as cross-functional as possible and compensate them by picking up more skills. Otherwise, you will lose them, of course. The reason why I say and compensate is because somebody else will take them otherwise. The other thing is about innovation. I don't think innovation ever works by telling somebody, you innovate. It just doesn't work like that. Innovation is neither discovery nor is it invention. It is a way, it is a method of doing things from known or maybe unknown technologies, be it or experiences or whatever. In the old days, they would say necessity is the mother of invention. Today, we know that if you have to do something, you may not be able to invent it in the true sense of the term, but you will do it in a way that maybe it's not been done before. And I see a lot of it happening. Believe me, a lot of it is happening around. But maybe they don't get those awards or whatever, because you can't call it innovation then. Because somebody's not told them, please go and innovate. So I know what I say doesn't sound like the known knowledge in that area. But I think there may be a few seeds of truth in what I'm saying. And finally, I'd like to say something. Again, from experience, there are many here who have had experience in working at universities. Do you know how long it takes for a university of good standing to introduce changes in its curriculum? It can be anywhere between 10 and 15 years. So what I'm saying is, I'm sure things have improved now from my days at university, but the reality is that in technology that moves so fast, you cannot rely only on the university to provide you well-trained, highly skilled people who will be relevant to the cutting-edge technology projects you're doing today. They may be very good in their understanding, you know, which is important, very important. And I think industry has to rely a little bit more on itself for the skills part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You have brought a lot of your practical experience on aspect of skilling and innovation. And in fact, these are the points where, in fact, industry and even government has to work on it, because there are certification courses, various courses on by various management institutes, various industry people on various cross-cutting aspect like supply chain, agri-tech, and so on. But how, or in context of digital transformation also. So how geospatial part and skilling part can be adopted into that is very important. And now I request Saurabh and then Atanu for their final words as far as this panel discussion is concerned.
Thank you, sir. Let me narrate a small story, I would say, that happened a few days back. And it covers skill, it covers startup, it covers GIS. A young startup guy through some reference reached out to me, trying to look for some work for their company. They've set up a shop in Bangalore. I invited him, had lunch, talked to him about what he can do. And I told him, and he said, I can do quite a bit in GIS. I went on looking at his portfolio, whatever they had created. I did not see any GIS. And finally, I had to move out of courtesies to ask him, why do you say you can contribute? He said, sir, when I was in NVIDIA, I was facing a challenge when creating driver assistance system that certain things will not work real time with few chips. And here is my skill and my team's skill. So if there is a chip that is there, or if there is a X kind of chip in an infrastructure that is there, I can hone that chip to do certain things which otherwise cannot be done on that device or that ecosystem or an Android or an whatever. Now, talking of skills, totally different nature of skills are coming into play right now. So we might have some great use cases of GIS, but if they don't work on the gadgets people are using or the systems that cars and other vehicles are using, they might not provide as good a user experience. Now, this totally different paradigm of skills was made available. And I was forced to think how many times I have seen an NVIDIA or an Intel in a GIS conference. Hardly ever. While they are doing quite a good cutting edge, and those skills are now not just in demand for use cases in India, but those skills are also needed in a big way for all the services exports that we do out of India. Like it or not, bulk of the GIS business in India thrives on the services exports that we do. So, how are you creating those skills? Another very interesting aspect. We are creating skills in India for India, even if we are certifying. This is a G20 year. Why aren't we talking about these certifications to go and be accepted elsewhere? So I'll give you another example. Very recently, in a prominent East Asian country, I had to lose a project because I could not hire local certified surveyor. I could have very easily shipped a person from India to do that short job, had these skills got the same amount of recognition or validation in those countries. So, talking of skills, talking of startups, I go back to my original point. Totally new nature of skills or combinations of skills are there from a skills export, from a skills enhancement, and even for the purpose of innovation that we very quickly need to think through, and the plan has to be holistic, involve more people who are sitting in periphery. And sir, you talked about agri-tech and you talked about the supply chain tech stacks happening, and beyond that, and even on the core manufacturing infra side of things. So that's my final submission when it comes to skills and startups, because more often than not, we will see more startups coming in these white spaces than on spaces that are already occupied by people who are there in the system.
Thank you, Saurabh. Atanu, your final word.
Thank you. I'll try to keep it crisp. Thank you, Saurabh. Yes, the skill that we are looking at from the modern day technologies like AI, ML need not be just from one part of it. It has to be over the ecosystem. So I'll go back a bit. And so what I covered was the initial was about what the policy and how we can implement it better. The second part of is that how do we attract more people to come and do an investment? But the third part of it is what are the actions that we need to take? And I think charity begins at home. We have how many committees, Sumit, in FICCI, and how many places we have geospatial representation in that? So let's have that. Where you see a prominence of various committees, we should have people from geospatial standpoint and what value they bring in. Second, we also need to understand one thing is that we have been talking about this policy within all geospatial committees, right? Is this is only applicable to the geospatial people, or it goes beyond that? Because if we are trying to address an outcome and we are dependent on the core industry, right, we are more of an horizontal. So the adoption, if doesn't come from the industry, then I think we are not doing the right job for us, right? There has to be attraction that has to be. So these are my 2-3 major points. FICCI committee will help us, one, to get a traction. Second, it will create an awareness. And third, you have large companies and they may see a benefit and they may sponsor a project for the startups, right? You have large, organizations. So can we have that kind of an ecosystem to start and promoting this technology and adoption and things like that? Maybe a bit futuristic or maybe a bit challenging or maybe very novice, but I think action needs to be done that way. We can talk a lot.
Thank you, Atanu. In fact, it was that entire panel discussion was quite enriching, and each and every aspect of the policy to put into practice has been covered. And in summary, maybe as a concluding point, because we have already crossed the time, in fact, I will put it in some way. I've already conveyed some of my comments to FICCI. See, as Nikhil said, as other panelists have said, the policy clearly defines the action points and timelines. And these action points and timelines needs to be converted into well-defined core foundation mission mode projects. I'm not talking about cross-cutting project like maybe a mission on agriculture, geospatial agriculture, which may be sitting on top of these core projects missions, where maybe to start with, a government departments to be made aware to formulate this project, bring certain quantified resources, institutional mechanism and provisions. And I have just listed out, maybe say, if you see the policy, if I call it a mission mode project 1, high resolution topographic survey and mapping. So which covers complete geodetic framework, large scale mapping, 3D, DEM, every aspect. So this could be a one mission. Second is geospatial knowledge infrastructure, which basically provide integrated data and information framework, including ICT. Third is mission mode for urban surveys and mapping. This is also has been listed in the action points. Fourth is national urban digital twins. It has also been listed. Fifth is blue economy, hydrographic and bathymetric data, oceanographic things, marine things. Fifth is what you call national geospatial infrastructure and platform for application, product and service delivery, where ICT, including your NGDR, UGI, all those things will come. And finally, what you call geospatial capacity building, National Geospatial Council, all those things. These are the core mission project which emanate out of this, where already annexure of the policy gives the list of various stakeholder and roles. The stakeholders needs to be guided. Maybe DST and FICCI like organization can play a nodal role to take this forward there. And industry can guide issues like right RFP, right involvement of a startup, and that foundation thing further unleash cross-cutting domain platform applications and services. So this is what the concluding reform, and in this panel, enriching panel discussion, in one way or other, these points has emerged. It has to be put in right boxes at right place. Thank you. So I thank all the panelists, FICCI, for this enriching panel discussion and asking me to chair and moderate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having us.
Sumit?
Thank you, sir, and thank you all the panelists for this very interesting discussion. And certainly, sir, one thing is evident that government has initiated it, its role, and we have a policy in place. Now, the more onus is now on the industry. And one suggestion which I would like to take up from FICCI's side also, and we discussed this briefly with our committee as well, that we have to start working with the sectoral teams here. So probably we can start with working with some of the key sectoral teams in FICCI, sectoral committees in FICCI, and then how to get the geospatial its place there, working for some mission mode projects as well. So that's how is the one way how the geospatial technology can find its place in the major government projects. So that's a very good a point to take forward here from here. and other points as well as Dr. Vishnu Chandra, listed out, in terms of clarity and, bringing investment, the panelists discussed about that. So we will take all these discussions forward and see on how to bring more value to this entire ecosystem. So thanks to all of you, and we would certainly bank upon your expertise and experience, while working on these particular areas. We'll certainly come back to you for your inputs, detailed inputs on the actionables. So thank you all the panelists, and once again congratulations to all the winners of Geospatial Awards and the esteemed jury. Thanks to all of you, and now we would like to close this discussion. Thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and thank you,
Thank you.
Vishnu, for conducting the discussion.
Thank you, sir.
And Sumit and Gaurav, thanks a lot to you.
Thank you.